My name is Catherine Halpern. I put together this presentation based on my last 15 years of working in my yard to make it a bird-friendly environment. I've done a lot of research with books and webinars and podcasts, and I tried to put it all together for you tonight. So these are some of my gardens in my front yard. My house is south facing, so I have lots of sun in the front and lots of native perennials. I grew most of these from seed, and that's another webinar that's also on the Rewild website. These are not only attracting pollinators, but when they go to seed, they will feed the birds. And I tried to plant things that bloom in all different seasons in spring, summer, and fall. These are my favorite books. I will put this slide up again at the end if you want to take a picture, or you can take it now. I recommend every one of them. I also have watched so many webinars, and these are some podcasts that I reviewed again recently to make sure I wasn't forgetting anything. Joe Gardner is a good place to go. They have lots of podcasts on all different topics. So our landscape isn't just for decoration. It serves life-saving purpose for birds and wildlife, and you don't need a large yard to create a habitat. My yard is only 1/5 of an acre, and I've done a lot with it. And the more diverse your planting is, the more different types of birds you'll see. So this is basically who shows up in my yard. We've got lots and lots of birds. They don't all come all the time, like the screech owl was there 1 or 2 times, hermit thrush, and who else? Some of these will show up from time to time, but the cardinals, the finches, the sparrows, the wrens, the woodpeckers, we see them every day. Juncos are seasonal. We're really excited that we're up to 5 different types of woodpeckers. The hairy woodpecker started to show up last year, and this year we saw a yellow-bellied sapsucker. So all these guys are happy to visit my yard. So what's the habitat? It's food, shelter, nest sites, nest materials, and water. And 1 through 4 come from plants. So you want to add more plants, not more feeders. And if you can meet these criteria, then you can certify your yard on National Wildlife Federation, and you can get a certificate and a sign, and your neighbors will know what you're up to, and maybe they'll ask questions and they'll want to do it too. So feeders are not the main source of food for birds. Feeders are mostly for people to attract birds to watch. Native plants attract insects that are crucial food supply for baby birds. So you want to plant a variety of natives to produce long bloom times. Native berry bushes have evolved along with birds to provide the proper nutrition at the proper time of year. This relationship helps the bushes and the birds because the birds disperse the seeds for the berries. You may have invasive berry bushes in your yard, but that's not the proper nutrition for the birds, and they'll fill up on basically junk food. It's not going to meet their needs. So try to remove invasives if you can. And you don't want to clean your garden up in the fall. Leave the seed heads, that's bird food, and leave the stalks as a place they can forage for insects. Leave the leaves. That provides cover for a lot of native insects. Many insects will overwinter in the leaves, and that allows the birds to forage for insects in the winter. Okay. Edge habitat is really important for birds. So don't just provide trees and perennials. You need a shrub layer for shelter and protection from predators. Evergreens are really helpful in the winter for shelter. And you want to leave your garden a bit messy so the birds can find what they need. In mid-April, you can cut your perennial stems down 12 to 24 inches from the ground. And if you chop and drop, you can provide abundant nesting materials. And while you're collecting twigs and branches, build a brush pile in the corner of your yard. That also will be a good haven for bugs and a good place for birds to go foraging. I haven't used nest boxes, but here's what I hear about nest boxes. You want to get to know the birds in your area so you can best serve their needs. If you just stick a nest box in your yard and you don't have the proper habitat, they're not going to use it to raise their young. The size of the whole of the box and the size of the box itself will determine what type of birds will use it. And be sure you buy it from a reputable bird store. The home store birdhouses are just decorative and they're not really going to help the birds. And you want to clean and set it up in February or March. And you can fill the bottom with wood shavings that you buy in a pet store to get them started. Water is necessary 365 days a year. I was resistant to getting a bird bath because I originally had a cement one and it was really hard to keep it clean. And then I found this plastic one. It's great. It doesn't crack in the winter. It's so easy to clean. You can just bring it indoors and scrub it up. I clean it every other day unless it looks really dirty, like if the starlings show up. I just spray it with a mixture of white vinegar and water. They say 1:9 ratio. Honestly, I don't measure. I just put vinegar and water and dish soap and rinse it well, scrub it with just soap and dry it, fill it up. In the winter, I go out in the morning and I empty the ice and I replace it with fresh water. If you're close to an outlet, you can use a heater, but I'm not close enough to an outlet. But you can see that little cardinal there. That was like a month ago in the freezing cold. He was taking a bath. And if you look around, you can see the little discs from when I dumped out the water on previous days. Okay, it's even better to put in a pond if you have the room for it. This isn't my picture. This is Dee's picture. Thank you, Dee. This is from Cornell Cooperative Extension, who shows up in your backyard pond. Mammals, birds, bugs, frogs, turtles, and other creatures. Even small fish and minnows can be passed as eggs through an animal or on the skin of a frog or a turtle. So I believe that's a heron. It's a great picture. Thanks. Okay, so these are the plants in my yard that the birds love for seed. And I've grown most of these from seed. The birds will just cover these. The two pictures are both goldfinches. The top one is New England aster, and the bottom one is a native sunflower, the smaller sunflowers. Those are the ones that they like. They love my Joe Pye weed. They love my goldenrod, New York ironweed, the asters they go crazy for. All of these, you'll get plenty of birds without a feeder. So if you can remove your invasive plants, I've gotten rid of about over 20 leaf bags of ivy from above my rock wall. And since I did that, there's been quite a transformation. If you look here in this picture, the doves love it up there. They love the exposed dirt. And these are two baby doves from a few years ago. This winter, we counted 18 doves on our rock wall. So once you pull up the invasives, then it allows the native seed bank in the soil to sprout. So I've learned that you don't want to just pull out everything that you can identify. If you could the first year, allow it to bloom, and then you identify it definitely. And if it's invasive, of course, pull it out before it goes to seed. But try to allow some native volunteer plants to fill in empty spaces. They're great for pollinators and seeds for the birds in the fall and the winter. You may even get volunteer trees. Like I have a black cherry now growing in my yard, a couple red cedars, and a crabapple. And I'm trying to trim them to keep them from getting too large because, like I said, my yard is very small. It's 1/5 of an acre. But I try to fit in whatever I can fit in for the birds. So here are some of the native volunteer plants that showed up in my yard. Jewelweed, I tried to grow that for the longest time from seed, but it needs two years of cold stratification. So I just gave up. But luckily, when I pulled out the ivy, it just showed up. And that's also great for hummingbirds. The evening primrose showed up a couple years ago. It's a biennial. I'm not sure how long it's going to come back for. But the best are the two wood asters, the white wood aster you can see in the top picture. Behind it, you can see I put in mist flower. I'm trying to add in plants that will fill in and prevent the ivy from coming back. The left is the blue wood aster, which is my absolute favorite. As you can see, it's covered in pollinators. And in the winter, it's covered in seeds, and the birds absolutely love it. And the 2 wood asters, they'll have seeds through December. So this is from the Cornell Cooperative Spring Gardening School Berries for Birds class that I took. And it shows how the different native shrubs have the proper nutrition at the proper time of year. The high fat when they need it in the winter, the calcium for the female birds after they lay eggs, antioxidants, vitamin C. So plant as many of these as you can fit in your yard. These are what I have in my yard with berries that the birds love. My house came with hollies and 1 pink dogwood. I've added a second, and I've added the rest of these bushes too. I put a star next to the winterberry. I have 4 winterberries. Unfortunately, some of the berry bushes need a male and a female plant. And I had purchased these from a nursery, and unfortunately, a lot of the nurseries cloned their bushes from a female plant. So there's no way I'm getting berries from those 4 plants. So what I've been doing is trying to fill in with native male winterberries, but right now they're very small and they're going to take some time to catch up. So be aware when you add berry bushes to make sure you get them from the right place. The spice bush I got from KMS. I got 2 of them, and 1 is female and 1 is male because they were not grown from clones. So the most important thing to attract birds is to grow bugs. If you want birds to nest in your yard, you need a steady supply, the complete life cycle in your habitat to support the birds. Luckily, a bird garden is also a pollinator garden and a butterfly garden. Pollinator's job is to provide food, seeds, and berries. Leave the leaves. Lots and lots of bugs will winter in there. Get over your wish to squish. That's a Margaret Roach quote. Naturalist E.O. Wilson calls insects the little things that run the world. So we really need to get over our fear of bugs. You don't want to use pesticides, herbicides, or fertilizers yourself. And don't use tick or mosquito spray services. Even the so-called natural ones will kill everything in your yard. So that's not a good thing. So birds needs differ from season to season. They need abundant food and nesting materials in the spring so they can locate them quickly and be alert for predators. So the cover of trees and bushes is so important. Be sure to plant spring blooming flowers and shrubs, especially host plants, to encourage insect populations. Some examples here: oaks, willows, dogwoods, viburnum, redbud, golden alexander, wild geranium, and golden ragwort. And you'll notice your neighbor's yards, there's nothing blooming at this time except tulips and things like that, which are pretty useless to nature. So be sure to select things in your garden that'll bloom in the spring. In the summer, once the eggs hatch, birds need so many insects to feed their young. Doug Tallamy says 1 clutch of chickadees needs 6,000 caterpillars to grow to fledge. You want to plant summer blooming flowers and shrubs, especially host plants, to encourage insect populations. Here are some examples: elderberry, Joe Pyeweed, New York ironweed, wild bergamot, coneflowers, butterfly weed. These things, it's pretty easy to find spring blooming native perennials. Most of the favorite ones are, summer blooming native perennials. Most of them bloom in the summer. So that's an easy thing to accomplish. Fall, after nesting, the birds molt, which is a really dangerous time for them. They need to replace their feathers, they're physically stressed, and they need shelter and food. Lots of protein from insects, lots of fats from native berries, and any of these things you can add will help them. Many non-native berries are high in sugar and low in fat, so they're not providing the birds what they need. They'll fill them up if that's all there is, but it's not going to help them. So you need to be sure to plant fall blooming native perennials, host plants like asters and goldenrods. Again, if you look around your neighbor's yards, there'll be nothing blooming at this time. Asters and goldenrods are so important for pollinators, for butterflies, and for the seeds for the birds in the winter. In the winter, birds need winter forage and winter shelter. And winter foods include berries, seeds from native perennials left in the garden, and insects hiding in the leaf litter. They use a lot of energy to stay warm in the winter. Some of them just shiver at night to stay warm, which uses a lot of calories. So this is the only time of year I actually feed the birds. I put out a high quality suet that's high in fat, and that can be a help. So here's what I do. I hang a suet cage feeder. You want it to hang it where there's cover from predators. And you need a high quality suet. The first ingredient should be beef fat, not corn. Unfortunately, the local hardware stores sell suet that's mostly corn, which that's not really what they need. They'll eat it, but it's not the best nutrition for them. I get my suet from Wild Birds Unlimited. And if you buy the suet with red pepper, then the squirrels won't touch it. If you don't, I've seen the squirrels go up to the cage feeder, open it up, and take the whole thing home. Okay. My trick is to place a chopstick through the bottom of the cage feeder and secure it with twist ties. Then the birds that need to perch, like cardinals and sparrows and juncos, can access the suet. You'll get a lot more action at your feeder. I clean it every time I refill it, spray it with water and white vinegar, rinse it well, then scrub it with dish soap, rinse and dry, and change the chopstick if it looks dirty. And if you place the feeder within 10 feet of a window, be sure to use window stickers to prevent bird strikes. That's the #1 killer of songbirds, that and cats. So please leave your cats inside. And lights out. Birds migrate mostly at night in the spring and fall using the stars for navigation, and light pollution causes so many problems for them. Any light that's pointed straight up at the sky and stays on all night can cause problems for the birds. So turn your lights out. This is from the Audubon website. It says specific plants that'll attract specific birds. I have, let's see what I have. What do I have here? I have a river birch for the chickadees. I have oaks for woodpeckers. I have, what is it? I have native grasses for the sparrows, sunflowers, elderberries, oaks, asters. The finches absolutely love the asters. So that's just a basic idea of if you want to attract specific birds. So in summary, don't use chemicals. Don't let anyone put chemicals on your property. Add a shrub layer. They really need the cover, and they can nest in there too. Remove invasive plants to make room for more natives. Invasive plants are wasted space in your yard. Plant a variety of native perennial shrubs and trees that bloom early spring to late fall to provide food, shelter, and nesting materials. Welcome native plants, volunteer plants whenever you can fit them. Leave the seed heads, stalks, and leaves. Provide water 365 days a year, and lights out. And that's basically it. So I'll put up my books again in case you want to take a picture, and any questions.
So
Any questions?
Robin wants to see the slide for this different seasons of spring. If you can go back on spring,
Yes.
what we can do.
Yes. Okay.
So if anybody wants to take pictures, you can do that. We will also, this is amazing. So we'll also post this up on our website and our YouTube channel. And once that's done, Gloria will send out a newsletter saying a new video has been posted, and you can access it from there. If you have any other questions, just unmute yourself and call out.
I do have a question, Catherine. It was a great discussion, not discussion, a great lecture, let's say.
Thank you.
I have a question for you because I'm looking up the Suet, and I understand that this Wild Birds Unlimited is a company.
Yes, there's one in
No, but
Syosset.
truly just get Amazon telling me about things, but not about this particular company. So is Amazon carrying those products or?
I don't know. I go to the store in Syosset. The main thing, it doesn't have to be Wild Birds Unlimited. Just make sure the first ingredient is beef fat and not corn.
Okay.
And you definitely want the red pepper unless you want the squirrels to steal it.
Yeah, no, I
The
have
birds
no.
don't care about the pepper, but the squirrels won't touch it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So a follow-up question on that. What about black sunflower and the seed mix that most big box stores sell? Good?
You mean for feeding year round?
For feeding during the winter. We should
Yeah,
not
you
be
can.
feeding our birds year round. We should make that clear.
Yeah, I take my suet down when it reaches 50 degrees because unfortunately in our neighborhood we have Norway rats. Plus, I'm noticing now that it's been warmer this week, there's a lot less birds at the suet. So there's other things for them to eat. So they don't come to the feeder as much. But any feeder that you use, you have to keep it clean. You have to scrub it every time you refill it, and you have to make sure the seed's not getting wet and moldy because that can make the birds sick, and then you're defeating the purpose of feeding them.
Hi, Melissa here. I'm the one who commented about the black sesame seeds because I like to put those out.
Yeah, they love
They,
that.
they spread. They're not invasive, but I also understand the suet. I've had bad luck with suet with it melting, so
Yeah, I only do it in the winter, in the very
okay,
cold winter.
interesting.
Yeah, like I said, we have Norway rats in my neighborhood. Last year, my daughter was enjoying the bird so much, I left it out until May, and then the rat looked in my back door, and I'm like, okay, next year I have to remember as
I
soon as
wanted-
it's 50 degrees to stop doing it.
Oh, wow. I wanted to ask what your thoughts were on peanuts. I have quite
They're
a
really
family of-
popular. They love it.
I have
I
quite
think
a family
there's
of
actually like a,
jays that come
oh
by,
yeah,
feed them peanuts, and I want to know, is that okay?
yeah, they love it. One of my neighbors must be doing that because I grow a lot of plants from seed, and I had a bunch of pots outside, and there was something weird growing in it, and I pulled it out, and it had a peanut shell. So the squirrel must have planted it in my planter. So yeah, they like it, and I think there's actually. I took a class, I actually took a class at Vanderbilt over the weekend with Anthony, which was gardening for birds. And he showed there's like a ring feeder that you can put the peanuts, the whole peanuts in the shell in. But there are a lot of birds that really love the peanuts. But you need the habitat too. You want them to stay in nest.
So for a yard that is bare of trees, what would you suggest to do to create a stop for the birds?
I would, if they could, add bushes. If they don't want to add a big tree, add some bushes and some perennials. Like I said, the most popular perennials I've seen in my yard are the asters and goldenrods. So that would be a really good thing to do. And if they could put some bushes for cover, the birds really need the cover from hawks and things like that.
I love my little blue stem too, and I cut it back.
Oh yeah. I
I
forgot
keep it
to
nice and
mention. I should go
short.
back because I forgot to mention in the talk the one picture because I think it was blocked. Where's the nesting one? There. This nest in the corner here. I had added little blue stem to my garden, and one spring the sparrows wouldn't let me near my garden. So I figured something was up. And then the next spring when I cleaned up the garden, I found this nest. So they did that in a little blue stem, believe it or not. They built that nest. So that's really good to have.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was. And then the year after that, I had ground nesting bees in the same spot. So when nature takes over a corner of your garden, let them have it, and you'll get it back when they're done with it. But that's the whole point of this, is to have them show up. Anyone else?
So this is a good one. Can we do anything to combat cats preying on birds?
Ah. Well, you can, if you're going to put up a feeder, I would put it where the birds have cover, where they can get away quickly and hide. That's about the only thing you can do if you can't. We have cats walking through our yard too. The birds just scatter. And also you can tell when there's a hawk nearby, as all the birds are very quiet. And I've seen the woodpecker like hide on the underside of the branch, very, very still. So they're aware, and you just have to give them some place to go where they can get away. If you stick a feeder in the middle of a grass lawn, you're probably not going to get that much activity because they're going to feel vulnerable unless they're really hungry.
Gotcha.
Robin, you have your hands up?
Well, I'm sort of piggybacking. I'm sorry you can't see me, but my whatever Wi-Fi is not great. Piggyback on someone else's question, but let's say you're gardening in containers
Mhm.
on a patio. Let's say you don't have a green space, other green
Right.
space. Same, uh, what would you suggest planting to attract birds and insects? The same,
Yeah, I
sort
mean,
of just like a bush on a smaller scale and
yeah, if you can, yeah, if you can do a small bush, and also, like I said, that one slide that I listed all the plants in my garden. Do you want me to go back to it? That the
yeah, that'd be
birds go
great.
crazy for. Where is it? Oh, here it is. These are all the things I have in my yard. So if you could do, you know,
Right.
some containers with some of these, they're really, really popular.
Thomas, does that help you as well?
Yes. So he replied yes.
Excellent. Thank you. This is great.
And my neighbor have volunteered white oak on his hedge, and he trimmed his hedge. And this white oak has become hedge plants.
Oh, wow.
And it's amazing to see. And now, you can grow oak hedge. Just, once they are 2-3 inches in caliber, just start cutting them and you can start trimming them the way you would a hedge, and it would be a
Great.
formal hedge. And it's crazy. I need to take a picture of it. It's like perfectly square,
Wow.
but it's an oak.
Yeah, I'm hoping to keep that cherry tree that showed up in my yard a reasonable height, because I can't do a 30 or 50-foot tree at that spot where it's at. But I was
I'm really
excited when I
interested
identified.
I'd be interested to see that oak tree in 20 years, that oak hedge. It's like a block of wood.
Oaks are so important too. So it's
So
great to keep it.
Francesca, I have a question about the bird bath. Do you not want your bird bath in an open area? Where is the best place to have them?
Yeah, you want it near cover too, so they can get away quickly.
Yeah.
I have shrubs like right a few feet away from it, so they can, yeah, they definitely need cover nearby. They'll be a lot more comfortable.